Mile High Hockey Lab.
Mile High Hockey Lab.
What is up, my friends? Welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. My name is Adrian Hernandez. I'm excited to be in this seat in my wonderful home, as I'm lucky to work from home these days, and set up to talk nothing but Avalanche hockey with you all. So I'm here today with Jackie K, Evan, Lou, and Jacob Wendling. Say hello, everybody.
Hello.
Awesome. Thank you guys for coming in. I know you guys got the script today, and I'm sure you had, a great idea of what we were going to talk about based on the way the game against San Jose ended for the Colorado Avalanche. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to talk today about Nathan MacKinnon. We're going to talk about congratulating somebody who has been striving for this measure of success his entire career and is yet to do so despite being a Stanley Cup champion. So congratulations to one Nathan MacKinnon, everybody. Woohoo!
Woo!
Yeah. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. If you're listening, please subscribe, like, share with your fellow Avalanche fans. Follow us on Twitter at Mile High Hockey and at Mile High Hockey_lab. I just want to talk about Nathan MacKinnon's 100th point. And I'll start with you, Jackie. Were you surprised that Nathan MacKinnon got his 100th point before Mikko Rantanen got his 50th goal?
I don't know. It maybe if you would asked in the middle of the season, I would have said yes, especially after he missed that month. But definitely when he got to 90, I mean, it's just so much easier to get points. So
Yeah.
Yeah, not really. I guess I'd say when he started getting close, I'd say definitely not.
Okay. So you're saying once you're closer with points, it's easier because points are easier to get than goals, essentially, is your logic there.
Yeah, exactly.
I got you. Well, I was mostly impressed with the fact that he's able to get 100 points in a season where he's been injured and he's missed quite a few games. Evan, is that how impressive is that to you? And what does that say about how he's been this past month and a half, I guess?
No, it's certainly impressive. And I mean, when you look at someone tweeted it out, one of the press writers, I want to say it was the other Evan Rowell, who tweeted out like how many people had missed games. And I think MacKinnon was probably at like 12, I think, or something like that. And then furthermore, I think someone replied to that and was like, hey, he's been close before already, right? I mean, we've already kind of documented that he's been close to
very
points for the
times,
last few seasons. And that, COVID shortened season probably didn't help with that, and 99 points that one season. So, it was only a matter of time until he got it. But it was certainly doing it injured for sure, or not injured, but, missing games because of injuries is also big. So,
yeah, if you miss games, you miss opportunities to score.
Yeah. And that's now you think of like what ifs, right? Like,
exactly.
What if he played all the games? Would he be 120 or something like that,
Well, it just goes to show that he's producing at such a high clip towards the end of the season. Jacob, is this kind of like a microcosm of the Avalanche as a whole, given that they've found themselves in contention for a Central Division title for the third straight year, despite the fact that they've seen a lot of key players, not just, bottom six guys, but both on the defensive and offensive side, they've seen guys go down, but yet here they are with a chance to seal their own fate as division supremes again.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's pretty easy for Nathan MacKinnon to be a microcosm of the Avalanche in general, like regardless of what happens, because he's the engine that drives the whole thing. And so, when he was out, that was their lowest moment of the season. It looked, hopeless. They're starting half an AHL lineup. And, as soon as he came back, all of a sudden things turn around. And a couple weeks later, he really starts ramping it up. And all of a sudden the Avs look like the Avs again.
Right.
The thing I think that's most impressive about all of the MacKinnon stats, we're looking at total points. If you look at even strength points, he's fourth in the league, despite only playing 65 games. And most other people on this list have all played 77 or 78 games.
Right.
I think he's number one in even strength points per game, like even more than McDavid.
Yeah, points per game. Mm-hmm.
Which
so
I know a lot of people.
Crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people take a dig at McDavid because a lot of his points do come on the power play. So if that's a reason to dig at McDavid, then I guess you're right. It's a reason to praise MacKinnon if he's getting his at 5-on-5. I don't know about the logic of that. It does take talent to be really, really legendarily efficient on the power play.
I know. I love that as a dig. It's like, yeah, no, it's like an automatic goal as soon as you go on the power play. That's why you're wait. It's like what? Wait, you're
Wait,
this,
what? Yeah,
I
exactly.
think 5-on-5 scoring is important, though. I mean, that's
Agree.
how you
Yeah.
separate. Like
right.
It is.
points and goals win the game, so it's not like power play is meaningless. But I think if you're trying to compare players, I think what they do at 5-on-5 is more meaningful, or
That's
at
fair.
least more like in the player's control, other than like outside factors of getting power plays and this and
Right.
that.
Not to mention, it's like the most common situation, right? Like teams just play at 5-on-5 more than they play with the power player
Mhm.
on the kill. So
Yeah.
better in that scenario means you're better overall. So I can kind of see it. With McKinnon's overtime goal, he became the franchise leading goal scorer in overtime, basically game winning goals in overtime. I feel like that says a lot about a guy who's a part of a franchise that's had a lot of clutch performers, especially skaters. Outside of Patrick Waugh, do you guys think that this kind of points towards McKinnon being at least top 3 most clutch Avalanche players of all time? I'll start with you, Evan.
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I'll say yes. I'll say yes. Why not? Because I mean, you throw on there obviously, and then you go Joe, and then I'm debating if you put Forsberg in there as well. I feel like because I feel like it would be the three like skaters if we're excluding Wall, it would be Sakic, Forsberg, and McKinnon probably.
Right.
So that there's that. So and yes, Aaron Pringle, you are absolutely correct. that breakaway gifted us that second point from Eric
Yeah.
Carlson. I mean, thank you, Eric Carlson. I guess. I mean, he's been getting points for the Sharks, but he also got points for us. So I'll take it.
Yeah, he just kind of dished it out. Poor guy, though. I could tell what he was thinking. I just didn't. Those white jerseys, man, they sneak up on you on the road, baby. But
Kind of
yeah,
like an avalanche.
exactly. Look at
I had to
that.
go there.
You did, and I'm glad you did. Jacob, what do you think? Where do you put McKinnon in terms of your rankings of most clutch players in Avalanche franchise history?
I mean, Sakic's one because he's the most clutch
For
player
sure.
in the history of the NHL. Like,
Yeah.
that guy's got. What I think I looked it up earlier. It's 14 overtime points, and second place on that list is Doug Gilmour with 9.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, the question I guess is McKinnon or Waugh for second. It's always hard to compare,
Goalie and
goalies
skater.
to skater. I mean, that team won 2. This team has won 1. So I think until this team at least gets 2 titles, you can't put McKinnon over anybody from that one. So I'll put him third.
All right, that's fair. Jackie, I'll let you cast your vote.
I kind of think of clutch as something different. I mean, like good players obviously are there in the big moments and they're scoring the big goals and everything. But I don't know. I don't know if I would necessarily say, to me, clutch is like just pulling something out of the sky. Like, and I don't really think that like that's McKinnon. He's doing it with his speed and his
You see it
talent.
coming.
And
Yeah.
yeah, you see it coming.
Yeah.
Like to me, in the most recent years, one of the most clutch players is Lehkonen. Like that's
Oh,
the
yeah.
guy that scored enormous goals out of
True.
nowhere and has some sort of crazy ability to just score when the spotlight's on him. Like how he even did that in Montreal. Like it was right after his tribute video and then he scores a goal.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
Yeah.
how does this guy do that? So to me,
His life's
like
a movie, no doubt.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
his dad is announcing his Stanley Cup game-winning goal for his home country. Like,
yeah.
You're totally right. You're totally right.
That's right.
So that's not to say I don't think that like McKinnon and Rantanen and McCarr and our elite players don't have clutch ability, but the most clutch player in the Avs history, I don't know. Like I said, I lean more towards like the Lehkonen type performances if I want to say like who's the most clutch. So
you're like a Tanguay guy then, maybe.
yeah, something like that. Something
Yeah.
more in that direction.
Yeah. I'm a Comfer person myself, so I think Comfer's pretty clutch in terms of your logic. Like,
Yeah, no, I see that. He does.
he
definitely,
scores big
like,
goals
pull
that you
some
just
out.
don't see coming. Yeah, and you don't see him coming because typically he's just not that guy. But that's actually not necessarily true this year, and I hope we get to see even more of him in the playoffs in terms of that clutch role heading forward. Somebody I'm looking forward to really looking forward to seeing how they perform in the playoffs is Alexander Gorgiev. And I did the live poll of the week this week, and I did it kind of as a ploy. I'm not going to lie. I wanted to see if my bias would be confirmed. I'll be the first to admit it. And I haven't looked yet, so I'm going to look here in a second. But I think it will be. I feel like Alexander Gorgiev has quietly become like the predominant storyline for the Avalanche, and he could be the predominant story of the NHL if the Avalanche are able to repeat on the back of like elite goaltending in the playoffs. So the question I posed on Twitter was, of these storylines, which one have you been most intrigued by? Essentially, McKinnon's 100 points, Rantanen's 50 goals, or Alexander Gorgiev's elevated play. Jackie, I left an other, so if you have another one that you want to add that I didn't say, by all means. But what would you have chosen in this poll, or what did you choose?
I actually picked other, and then I thought about it because I feel like the only storyline of this season has been the injuries. I'm not saying that was a good storyline. I would say like my other's anything but injury storyline would be my favorite. Like it is nice though here at the end of the year that we have something to focus on rather than like the minute by minute is Landeskog ever going to play.
Right.
So it's nice that we're like focusing on McKinnon, and
that's a good point.
Of the three options, I would pick Rantanen. I said it on last week's show. I just think 50 goals is more meaningful, Mark, I guess, or a little bit more difficult to achieve.
Yeah.
So that's something I've really been looking at ever since he passed even like 30. So
well, yeah, because he did
like
it pretty early
ago.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, or even more than 2 months. Yeah. You're right. So I've kind of thought about like, well, what if he could get to 50? So I guess for me, that's the one I've been focusing on. But when you mean Georgiev specifically, I don't know if he's gotten the attention that he deserves, because it just seems like nobody argues about him, nobody complains about him, which is a good thing, but they're not really like praising him either. It's just kind of like a given, like, oh, Georgiev's going to be solid, and that's great, and we can count on that, which is great. But I guess it would be nice if he did become a bigger storyline.
Yeah, I liken it almost to like, I don't know, the way Bronco fans kind of overlook the best player on their team constantly, and it's usually somebody on the offensive line, because for a very long time the Broncos had a dominant offensive line, and it was like if you went there, you became the best guard in the league. And I feel like the Avalanche have a similar thing going right now with goalies, where it's like if you're a guy who's been on the fringe of being a starter and you just haven't gotten your shot, go to Colorado and you're going to be a Vezina caliber type goalie. And I think that kind of shades how we view Gorgiev's success, because we've seen guys come in. We've already seen Grubauer come and go. We've already seen Kemper come and go, both of them with their own version of their best success. So I feel like that kind of clouds people's interpretation of just how good Gorgiev has been compared to expectation. Evan, what do you think? What was your answer to the poll?
I'll admit I voted for McKinnon's 100th.
Okay.
Just because of
don't have shame in that.
Look at the celebration last night.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty cool.
That was a good celebration. I haven't seen that much, not class. I haven't seen that much passion, emotion, I guess, out of passion. There you go, out of him in a little while.
Since EJ tackled him, pretty much.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, like part of it could be just because of the win, but then again, it's also a win in overtime against the very much struggling San Jose Sharks. So I don't know. But point being, like, that was special, and whatnot. And I'll kind of add on my points about your comments on Georgiev, because I mean you are right. It was proven last year. It's been proven before that the Avs with this defense, they can have quote unquote mediocre goaltending and be fine.
Yeah.
We've seen that already. And so now if we're going in the playoffs with a healthy defense and a really good goaltender like Georgiev, they're going to lock it down better.
Yes. See, and that's what I still feel like that's so overlooked about last year's team. Everybody does talk about Lehkonen and McKinnon and the top line and how successful the top line and Cale Makar. But I think the real story of the Avalanche was how well they played defensively, and specifically in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final, how they played defensively in the third period. That was arguably what won them a Stanley Cup, at least in that moment and in that context. So I agree with you. And And like you pointed towards, Gorgiev isn't just a mediocre goalie.
Oh,
And we may have had two just mediocre goalies as it appears. I know it's only been a couple years for Grubauer and one for Kemper, but nonetheless, it still feels like they're not quite the same as they were when they were with us. Whereas I feel like Gorgiev would have a future elsewhere, even if he wasn't behind a good defense. And
yeah,
I feel comfortable with him in net. Yeah.
I do too. And the thing too, when you look at last year with Kemper missing so many games as he did during that run too, Pavel Francouz stepped up in a huge
Exactly.
way. So now you have a great 1-2 pairing, and you have both of them, that could be running towards the playoffs. Hopefully, Francouz is,
On the mend. Yeah.
he's been skating, and he's obviously with the team right now in California. So hopefully, he'll start progressing. Maybe we'll play in the last week sometime, maybe in one of those 2 games in the back-to-back with Winnipeg and Nashville next week. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean those
with
two
you.
are great for us. And
Yeah.
not on wood that
Yeah.
stays healthy. So
Exactly. Well, and just to get back to your McKinnon point, we talked, and I don't know if it was last episode or the one before, but we talked about whether or not it meant a lot to him within the scope of his, competitive fire and kind of what he takes into his mentality. And I think you don't have to look any further for proof of McKinnon being excited about his 100th point than the picture of him with the puck, which is like total full childlike grin. Almost reminded me of the grin he had when he's holding the cup next to his childhood net. So it did look like exactly, yeah, Evan, that's a great impression of it. So Jacob, what was your answer to the poll, and tell me why?
I went with Georgiev. Part of it was I also agree that I don't think he's got the due he deserves most of this year. Although I think this week that's changing. I think he was at the top of Pierre LeBrun's article in the Athletic this week as far as off-season trade additions. He gave the Avs an A+ for it. Like, you're starting to see a lot more people take notice, and I think part of it is they looked at the league leaders like, holy crap, this guy's second in wins. He's fourth in save percentage.
First in road wins.
We talk about the Avs as a defensive team, and they are. I think that's essentially what their identity has been this year, partially because for part of the year they didn't have the horses to be a score first team. But I think it's kind of notable that he's faced the 5th most shots in the entire NHL, and there's only 4 teams in the NHL who have given up less goals than the entire Avalanche team. And so,
wow.
The defense has been good, but it hasn't been up to, I think, its usual snuff this year. And so, in the roundtable this week, Ezra and I had a stealth argument between, Mikko and Georgiev as the team's MVP, because it comes down to kind of, do you think that Mikko's goal scoring has been, the driving force this year, or has it been Georgiev backstopping them all those nights that, maybe they didn't deserve to win?
Yeah, that's a great question. Maybe that'll be the poll next week, because that's a very good question, because I tend to think that a goaltender is slightly more important just in terms of the overall outcome of the game, because there's not a lot of games that end 1-0. So and by that logic, it's a culmination of offensive plays, whereas goaltending, it's one person in the net the entire night if it's going the right way. Right. So if you want your night to not end early, it should be going well for you. And Jacob, you mentioned that Pierre LeBrun gave the Avs an A+ for the trade of Gorgiev, but to me it's the trade and sign, because they got him for 3 years at a very cheap price. So now it looks, and I this is how I posed it in the script. I said, does Gorgiev represent Joe Sakic and Chris McFarland's best pickup? Is that the masterpiece for him? If they win the Stanley Cup, that's a no doubter, right? If he becomes a Stanley Cup winning goaltender in the one season he's been here and has 2 more years, the answer to that question is yes. But Jackie, what do you think?
Well, if we're talking about the last off season, definitely. And it's really interesting because to separate out the goaltender, because what we've talked about is a lot of system-based stuff too. Like, the Avs are a suppressive team and they need someone good, but he doesn't have to be great in net. And so that could lead into an interesting conversation of the goalies that stand on their heads and the ones that are more visibly stealing games get the credit. And is somebody that's good and solid, and is great because of his team. Like, let's say the Bruins goaltenders as well, their statistics are amazing. Are they the MVPs of their team because of the seasons that they've had, or is it more of a team-based thing? But that's like a whole nother road to go down. But if we're talking about like the move that the Avs made over the offseason, definitely Georgiev is tops on that list. If we're talking about like building the cup team and everything, I'd say Nichushkin, but I also don't think that was like
predictable.
I think they got a little lucky there.
Exactly. They didn't make that move going, this is what's gonna win us the next Stanley Cup.
You know, obviously like the best trades they made were like Taves for the 2 second-round picks, or I'd even say Burakovsky. I think they got a lot out of him for I think it was a second and a third. So if we're going back that far, then I would throw a couple other names in the conversation. But as far as like near term, definitely Georgiev was a big addition for them.
Yeah, and like I said, I bring it back to his contract because they got him for 3 years at 3.4 million. So that's if he's
it's kind of like the Grubauer thing because he was an RFA as well. But I guess the problem then becomes, are they going to give Georgiev that $30 million contract that they wouldn't give Grubauer and Kemper? Or is it going to be like, okay, we're going to go for the next guy and hope to keep him around for 3 years?
Yeah, but going back to what we've all mentioned about the process or the system, the defensive prowess, do the Avs always hold the bargaining chip when it comes to these goaltenders? And is it going to put them in the position to constantly be getting the backup of somebody who's the best goalie in the league, who also looks like they could be a starter at a cheap rate? I feel like you could just keep running it back until it doesn't work. And I feel like if you don't, you're kind of silly, because if it isn't broke, you don't fix it.
I mean, like if you look at the highest paid goalies in the NHL, like that's a cautionary tale more than it is a list of like Gary Price. Best goalies in the league. And so like part of me wonders, is this this idea that basically you don't pay goalies unless you have a Vasilevsky or a Shesterkin. It's better to just kind of play the goalie roulette every year and try to find the best value you possibly can. I wonder if that's an artifact of this current cap regime, and if that's going to be the case going forward as the cap goes up. Because then when Georgiev his contract is up, maybe the cap's up another $5 million, and all of a sudden hey, you can keep an extra couple million to make sure you get a goalie you trust.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially because like the upper echelon of goalies, they get good forward numbers. Like we're talking 10 million. That's 3 players in your bottom 6 or in a defensive grouping. So it literally sucks up the depth that you might have, especially if on top of that you have forwards and defenders that you're paying at a premium as well, which I think is the situation for the Avalanche. Not necessarily at a premium, but at value for sure. Pretty much right now. I don't think anyone's really not getting paid what they're worth for the Avalanche. Or am I wrong about that? Can you think of anybody who's not getting paid what they're worth maybe right now? Maybe Comfort?
I mean, Cale Makar.
Always Cale Makar.
I'd say Byram. But, I mean, that's ELC. I mean, that's because of ELC.
Right.
Does that really count or not? I think Rodriguez has been better than $2 million, but
it's true. I would agree with that.
Yeah, Comfort's outplayed his $3.5 million for this, last year.
But he was pretty close to that, or maybe below it, leading up to this season, probably. So, yeah, I'd say that kind of averages out. That's an interesting thing, because I agree with you, Jackie. Byram might be the most clear-cut answer to that because of his ELC. How do you think he'll be prioritized once that ELC is up? Is he going to be one of those guys that gets a long-term contract? I hope so.
I would love that. I don't know if they can pay that though. I mean, honestly, it might have to be like $8 million to sign him, like 7-8 years. Yeah, and we're talking short term. Like he has the comparables for like 4.5, even on like a 2-year deal. So. Right. It's not going to be cheap. And the thing is it'll be interesting because the RFAs usually are the last to sign. Like we're talking like September. Mm-hmm. But the Avs also need to know that number.
Yeah, they do.
Like, could they really go through the summer and just have no idea how much that's going to cost. Like New Hook, they could probably wait.
Not your
figure it's-
typical RFA. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be around like probably 2 at most 3. But like, how do you budget for Byram? So I'd love to see that get done sooner than later. But that's obviously gonna be a tough one. So like, I think the Avs have done well not bridging guys. I mean, can you imagine if they had bridged McCarr? Like, what a disaster that would
Oh
have
yeah.
been.
Sheesh. Yeah.
But
Good point.
I just honestly don't even know if they can
Yeah.
pay Byram. Like, I mean, it's definitely going to be more than 7 to sign him long term.
Well,
You know, you look at
hasn't the talk been like he's going to replace Devon Taves, and once Taves' contract is up, and he'll get some of Taves' contract up. Am I wrong about that or no?
that's probably their thinking. I don't see how they can sign Taves long term. And I know
Taves only makes like $4
half
million
our
too,
listeners
right?
Yeah.
out there are screaming, "You trade Gerard, that's how you keep Taves." But he's not going to make $5 million.
Yeah.
Taves is going to make that $8 million. And it's not going to be over 4 years. It's going to be over 7 or 8 years. And like, where are they going to find the money for that? Even if they got rid of Gerard, which first of all, you'd be getting rid of him for another player you have to pay, and then you'd have to pay to replace him. So it's not like free $5 million if you get rid of Gerard. So I just don't see that as a viable solution to the how are they going to pay these guys problem.
Yeah.
I've
never heard of trading away a good contract to make way for other contracts, but that's just me.
I don't think the Avs are thinking that way too.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
who needs cost-controlled top 4 defensemen more than the Avs?
Exactly.
Right.
Devontae is making $4.1 million through next season, so yeah. That's gonna be not what he's paid
Yeah, he's
in
gonna get double that.
2025. Yeah. So yeah, you're definitely onto something. And Evan, I hope you're right. I hope the talks about Byram being slated to roll into the pairing with McCarr, because man, that would be super entertaining at the very least. And I will say that of the two, they're two of my favorite defenders because they shoot so well, but they have different styles. So I feel like they would work really well in a pairing on the offensive side, especially. And I think that Byram could learn a lot from McCarr defensively in terms of his edge work and stuff like that. Because I do think they're both really good skaters too. So, I mean, obviously he can't skate like McCarr because very few people can, but you pair up with him and you start to pick up on little things like that. I just worry, is it another New Hook Kadri situation? I don't think it is, because we've seen Byram be the real deal already, and New Hook's just shown glimpses of that. So I'm with you. That would be really cool, and I think it would be the responsible thing to do. And then you can go find another bottom 6 defender in free agency or at the trade deadline and yada yada. So I'm with you on that. I will say though, of the people that are not being paid what they're worth, maybe it is Mikko Rantanen right now. Just even though he's making good money, I feel like the guy, I mean, as of late, he's struggled, but I feel like it has a lot to do with because of how close he is to 50. Do any of you feel like the fact that he is at 49 is kind of like not so good in certain scenarios for the team? Because it seems like they're focusing on getting him the puck
On the
almost
power
all
play,
the time.
especially.
Say, look at last night.
Yeah.
Look at last night.
It hurts the power play. I think it does.
Yeah.
They should have been feeding him more on the power play though. Like his shot's better than McKinnon's, so I don't know. I think maybe a little happy medium, because it does telegraph it to the other team. I mean, come on, like the goalie is gonna look for Mikko to take the shot,
well,
but
altitude had like a circle around Mikko the entire time he was on the ice.
Yeah. It reminds me of like when Iginla, I don't remember what the milestone was. It was like 630 goals or whatever it was. It kind of reminds me of that, but it's like he's a little bit more on top of his game, more than like Iginla at the time, which was like painful that they just kept giving the puck to him. No.
I think he ended up scoring like off a skate too, like off his own skate,
finally.
like not paying attention. Like he's looking the other way and it like bounced off of him and went in. I'm pretty sure how he got that goal. So that's really funny. I agree with you. It's like they're just too focused on it. And if you think about it, he's gotten 50 by just playing. He's gotten 49 by just playing. So let's just play, and he's gonna get 50. just the numbers are there. So, Evan, I asked Jackie earlier about if you were surprised that McKinnon got to 100 points before Rantanen got to 50. Pretend I asked you that like 2 weeks ago, because based on Jackie's answer, what would your answer have been then?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I probably would have said yeah, because I think for 2 weeks he's been stuck on like 48 now, right?
Yeah.
47, 48, something like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he could have gotten 50, I know, a couple weeks back against Arizona and that home and home, and then
When he hit a gosh darn referee.
hit the referee, yeah.
Yeah.
Anaheim, who else have they played? Oh, and then obviously Dallas and Minnesota too. So, yeah, it definitely would have been possible. Definitely feel like it could have been possible like 2 weeks ago, but
Mhm.
alas, here we are.
Yeah.
And so hopefully you get to tomorrow night.
I know. I was gonna say at least we pretty much know both will happen, and if both don't happen, we should be concerned a little bit. I feel like. Do you think?
Turn on the alarm bells. What's
Yeah.
happening?
I mean, not overly concerned, but like it is scary when a guy who's got 49 goals just suddenly loses his scoring touch. What do you think, Jacob?
Maybe. I mean, like once we get to the playoffs, he doesn't have 49 goals anymore. He has 0 goals.
Zero.
Maybe
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Pressure disappears because he's just chasing a number at that point. So once you remove the number, hopefully that will remove the stress to chase it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, and that's why I was like hoping so bad that he would have gotten that one that went off the crossbar, because not only was it like would have it gotten it out of the way, but it was a pretty goal. It was like Mikko, vintage Mikko. It would have been, you could have put a picture of it in the mausoleum. Like it would have been beautiful. So his regular, you mentioned that the regular season success is nice, but it's kind of all about the playoffs. Jackie, are you nervous, excited about this potential playoff? Well, not potential, this upcoming playoff run. And if your answer is both, tell me what makes you nervous and tell me what brings you peace of mind.
Yeah, I guess both is fair to say. I am generally more of an anxious person, so that's just the way
Ditto.
I am. I would say the peace of mind part is just that they've done it. Like it's just it removes just that, I don't know, that's just the anxiety that like you just feel like it's never gonna happen, or like is this their last chance? Just all those thoughts. Like we've experienced it, and it'd be awesome to experience it again, but I mean, we'll see when we get there, right? Maybe my answer will be different when we're down in a series or something. But so I kind of feel both ways. Like excited just because that's like the best time of year. That's why we grinded through these 8 months or however long it's been. It's to get to that point to see what they can do. But I don't necessarily think they have the team to win it all again. Like their elite players are always capable of anything. So I'm not gonna write it off, but I don't think they're quite where they were last year. And like even Bednar admitted it. I thought was kind of interesting that I mean he also said that's not to mean that he doesn't believe they can do it, but like last year's team was stacked. Like they finally had incredible depth, and this year it's just not the same. Plus, like how many, injured, how much more of the injury curse do we have to deal with? So I don't know. I guess I'm just looking forward to maybe a little bit less stressful playoff experience, but we'll see when we get in the middle of it. It's easy to say that now.
I hate to break it to you, but last one was pretty not stressful given they only lost like 4 games.
I know, but it was so stressful though.
I know.
That Blues series got real stressful.
Yeah, I think the anticipation of winning another one is why it was so stressful. But I think this one is going to be more stressful because if the Avs do win, it's going to be they're going to have
game
lost
7s.
Yeah, they're going to have to probably slay that dragon this time around. And I'm like you, Jackie. I'm typically nervous. So I think I'll be nervous this year because I feel like everybody's trying to take the crown, and there's a little more bragging rights right now. Anybody who beats us, who eliminates us, is gonna immediately think they're the next champ. So I'm nervous mostly. I'm excited, and I can kind of lean on, like you said, that they've done it before. I will agree with you though, and agree with Bednar that they're gonna have to do it a different kind of way. this season. They're not going to do it the same way they did last year. I think that's what he meant when he said like it's dangerous to compare them, because if you think that this team is just going to breeze through rounds like last year's team did, I think you're in for a surprise. Evan, what do you think? Are you nervous or are you excited?
Both,
Yeah.
obviously. I'm like everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were definitely spoiled with that.
Yeah.
last
There you
year.
go. Yeah.
We were definitely spoiled with that. But I mean, I know a few days ago I went back through my phone and looked through YouTube and was looking at pictures and videos of the playoff runs and just like the emotions and the scenes and the environment, and I was like, "Whoo, I can run through a brick wall right now."
Yeah.
Super. So I mean, there's always that excitement. It's one of the best times of the year watching playoff hockey, um, and it's still going to be fun regardless. It's as we've already kind of stated, it's not going to be as easy as last time.
Hmm.
I mean, you're still dealing with injuries. Teams are going to be better. I'm calling it now. They're not going to sweep their way through the first round this time around.
No first round sweep, huh?
No first
Even if
round.
it's Seattle?
No, definitely if it's not Seattle.
Interesting.
They lost twice to Seattle.
Yeah,
I hear that, but I feel like goaltending is big in the playoffs, and I feel like as much as I love Gruby, I feel like he's not quite what he's getting paid to be.
especially
And
with Martin Jones too.
yeah,
They're really
I'm
doing
sign me up for Martin Jones and Philip Grubauer and get Connor Hellebuck the hell away from me. That's what I say.
Yeah, no, I think that is a fair take.
I mean, but no, I'm excited. It's always fun, and I think just the kind of general thing that we could say to Avs faithful is, we need to like lower our expectations because I can already see Avs Twitter
Good
blowing.
luck.
I can already see them blowing up like
Oh,
after
yeah.
they lose like game 2 in the second round like they did last year. Oh, the series is over. This is it. It's like we're not. No, this isn't the same team, right? And we're
Yeah.
still dealing with injuries. But actually, let me go back to that point. Actually, the injury part, because you have these 4 guys that are going on the trip now.
Yeah.
Landeskog is he's still obviously a ways back. I'm hopeful for the first round, but I'm hopeful, but I don't want to get my hopes up too high.
I feel like game 5.
Game 5, I could see that, like in the latter stages of
Mhm.
the first round, if it gets to that point, maybe. But like Manson should hopefully be good. I know he's been going back. Lekkonen's just started skating with a stick again. Francois has been doing better. So, if as long as you get even 3 of those 4 guys, that's going to be big. And
Yeah.
so that only elevates the excitement even more in my mind.
Yeah. I say game 5 because game 5 is typically like the swing game in a series. And if you're going to insert your captain into the lineup anywhere inside of a first round series and you don't sweep, it's probably game 5. And if not the first round, I feel the exact same way about round 2 if they are lucky or fortunate enough to be in the second round. Jacob, I'll end with you. I'm pretty sure you're excited, but tell me, are you excited, nervous, both? What's up?
I mean, if you're not nervous during the Stanley Cup playoffs, like, are you really a hockey fan? Like,
Yeah.
there's always going to be some level of nerves. But like, if we're comparing it to last year, I don't even think that the nerves are remotely close to last year. Last year they had to win it. Like, they had the best second line center in the league who was on his way out in free agency. They had Burakovsky, who was playing well. He was going to be on his way out. Manson was an expiring contract. We didn't know what was going to happen with them. They pushed all of their assets to the middle of the table to get him and Lekkonen and Kemper. And Kemper was a free agent. And so this year it's different. It's a little more mellow. You're not seeing all these markers saying, look at this advanced metric that shows that the Avs are, one of the 10 best regular season teams ever. It felt like 538 was publishing that every other month last year. And so I think it's, a little more mellow. I'm generally excited because I think that for the first time really in this, McKinnon era, the Avalanche have a goalie who could steal a series. And that has really never been the case before. And it just adds a new element to this Avalanche attack that, you're so focused on not getting beat by McKinnon and, Rantanen and Makar. Now all of a sudden, hey, maybe you shut those guys down and you still lose because you can't beat Georgi, and that's it. That's the whole series.
Well, we remember what it was like to have a goalie like that. And it is different. Like you explained, like you watch differently when you have a goalie like that, because you expect him to not give up a goal the entire game. And I feel like the obviously Patrick Waugh is the guy we're talking about here, but I mean, if you can instill that kind of confidence, not in your fan base, because no offense, who cares, but in your defense, in your defensive group, if they feel like if they do their job, there's a good chance other team's not gonna score at all. That's huge for a team inside the playoffs, especially one that's as dynamic and potentially explosive as the Colorado Avalanche. So,
and I think it gives the team the confidence to play the style that Bednar has kind of been pushing them to
exactly.
play. Like you said, this is not a team that can just go out and outscore their opponent on every single night. Like there's a reason that he's been emphasizing the checking portion of the game, the last month or so, every time their play takes a dip. Because the way that they have to win is they have to grind people down and then allow their speed to take control of the game when the game allows it. They can't dominate for 15 minutes at a time the way that they did last year. They've got to kind of pick and choose their spots.
They're gonna have to lean on him a little bit. You're right about that. And a big factor in how and who the Avalanche will face in the first round of the playoffs will be pretty much all determined this week and in the following week. And of the final games, the Avs pretty much play 2 playoff-bound teams, and then I think it's 4. They got 6 games left. I don't know. I can't remember, but nonetheless, 6. Let's see. I wrote it down. Final 6 games. Yeah, 4.
Yeah,
so I
4
wrote
out of the
down
6.
if they win 4 or 6, that's probably enough to win the Central Division. Jackie, how confident are you in the Avalanche? Maybe not winning 4 or 6, but winning the Central Division.
Well, I'm one that has probably focused on them winning the division less, even though after playing those Dallas and Minnesota games, it does sound pretty appealing to not play them in the first round, even though that would be their life in the second round. But, I definitely would rather have like Seattle over those two. So, do I think they're going to, if they play well in LA, maybe that's the key for me because, if I'm not mistaken, they've lost their other 2 games against LA.
Yeah.
And they play a type of game that I think when the Avs are playing well, when the Avs are playing well, they can beat anybody. But that'll kind of show you where the Avs are at right now if they can play well in that game in LA and win that one. And so I'm still kind of on the fence right now because it also depends on what the other 2 teams do as well. Like I said before, Dallas has such a because Minnesota then just lost to Vegas twice, and Dallas has just such an easier schedule. I still think that they're the ones to beat and not Minnesota. So like I said, can I leave the answer as undecided and depending on how they play against LA?
Yeah,
if I
absolutely.
think they're going to win the division or not.
Yes, you can absolutely leave it open-ended like that because, what are we talking about here? We're talking about predictions here, so you're totally fine with that. I will say, I feel like it's interesting that the Jets, they play the Wild and the Avalanche the last 2 games of their season, so like they're in kind of a weird situation because imagine that they are sitting somewhere in that first wild card spot, but they'd rather play the Wild, who end up stealing the Central from the Avalanche, than the being in their division. And so is that a situation where a team like them tanks to get a specific seed? Does anybody do that in the NHL?
They're hanging on by such a thread. There's like no way that they could, if you were
it would be the very last game of the season, so they would know if it mattered, essentially.
Well, the other thing is that Nashville also plays, I think, us in Minnesota. And if it comes down between them and Nashville, they really can't. Yeah, the Jets and Nashville, I think Minnesota and us play those 2, the last 2 games. They're just offset by a game. So I don't know. It's probably going to be a race between them. I just think Calgary's so done. To lose at home to Chicago.
They play the Jets tonight. It's actually a pretty big game if you think about it.
That's true. That's true. And watch, they'll come out and win that one and just muddy the waters again.
Well, that's so crazy. Like Winnipeg's last 5 games: Calgary, Nashville, Sharks, Wild, Avalanche. So they
Yeah.
play at least four potential playoff teams. The Preds and the Flames are still kind of chasing, but I just think it's interesting. They have like power. They could win games and then have all the power. But Evan, you tell me, is this something that you think the Avalanche can pull off in winning the Central Division?
I think so. And I'm looking at our own Casey Jim's tweet because he tweeted out like every single team in the West and like how many games they have left and who they're playing and things like that.
Yeah.
The Avs have, out of the 10 teams that he listed, have the sixth easiest. No, wait, fourth easiest schedule remaining. So below them is Minnesota, Seattle, Calgary, and Edmonton. They have easier schedules than the Avs. Nashville is first on that list. They have the hardest schedule. I mean, as you already kind of said.
Yeah.
Dallas is right above the Avs, right in the middle. So they're as has been.
They have the easiest road. Is what you're laying out. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to say that, but I was going to say that like they're really tight, just like as it has been in the standings for the last little while now. So it's going to come right down to the wire. I don't think we're going to know until the last day, to be honest, because doesn't everybody play on the last day?
I think so. I know the Avs do because of the Predators makeup game.
Yeah, because the Preds makeup game. So I'm looking at the schedule really quickly. Because if I'm not mistaken, no, just kidding. There's only 2 games that night. It's us and then game out east. So maybe we'll know then on Thursday night.
Maybe we'll see lots of young guys playing in that game, hopefully, and it won't matter because we'll have won the division by beating the Jets on Thursday, April 13th.
Here's the thing too, is that the Predators they play Minnesota on the 13th and then they welcome us on the 14th.
Yeah, back to back.
Their schedule's gonna be so hard.
That's why I say that about the Avs because that's a back-to-back too for them, the Jets and then the Preds on the 13th and 14th.
So I mean, both teams are going to be feeling the same way, except the Avs are going to be traveling, which But I think we're going to know. I think we're going to know by the end of Thursday night because I mean, both Minnesota and Dallas play that Thursday night. Both of their games are going to finish either before or right at the same time as the Avs. Because they're all 6 p.m. puck drops. So I mean, I guess they're gonna find out. We're gonna find out all together.
What's funny is we did that poll. I think it was like March 20 something. We did a poll about they had like 42 points left. They had to win X amount to win 70%, X amount to win 60, X amount to win 50%. We asked fans how they thought the Avs would finish in those 42 points, and they all went with kind of the middle of the road where the Avs had been ticking along, which is about just over 60%, which is where they're at now. It's 64%, I think, is where they're at point percentage wise. But in that time frame, they're actually just 3 wins away from being at a 70% point clip. And I predicted that 104 points would win them the division. So that might be pretty spot on. And it's telling again of how successful the Avs have been later on in this regular season. Jacob, are you confident in the Avalanche winning the Central Division?
Yeah, I mean, I've been confident since January when I wrote
how
they do it. I mean, they control their own destiny. They're playing as good as any team in the NHL right now. Their remaining opponents aren't that difficult, and like you said, like that Winnipeg game, it's Winnipeg's last game of the regular season. Maybe their playoff position is determined at that point, and they rest starters. That Edmonton game that they played, that's their second to last game of the season, and depending on how the 2-3 or 1-2-3 seeds in that division shake out, who knows? Maybe they're resting starters at that point. So like the schedule on paper already looks good enough for the Avs, and then you factor in the fact that the good teams that they're playing, they might be done, for all intents and purposes when we get to those games. And so they have come this far. I'm not about to back off now.
Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I said they'd win the division when they were like 18 points out of the division.
Yeah, when they had to jump like 4 teams still. Yeah, you definitely called it. If they do it we all owe you a bottle of blue, as they say on altitude. So I just like to end the show by opening up the conversation to you all and see if we haven't touched on anything. And I know, Jackie, you mentioned in our little chat that you wanted to talk a little bit about some of the acquisitions the Avalanche have made in regards to some of the pickups from college hockey. Do you want to get into that?
Yes. So yeah, right after we recorded last week, then the Avs
right
decided to sign three different college free agents to entry-level contracts, and so that's a lot of activity for them.
For sure.
Two of them have already played with the Eagles and looked pretty good doing so, even though this year is definitely just like a little taste because they're not signed in the NHL for this year, so there's no chance that the Avs can call them up even for like the last game or anything like that.
Myers last year, pretty
yeah,
much.
Exactly. Like when they signed him, he got all the promises, and so he got those 5 games and the NHL contract and everything. So these guys aren't at that level, but I just think it's we all know that they're doing this because they traded a lot of prospects and picks away, but I don't think it's that simple. And I think kind of like the analysis has ended there, and like who doesn't like free assets? So it's nice that for whatever reason that these guys had options and decided to sign with us and come here. But I feel like it's a little bit of like trying to shortcut a proper development system. Like it shouldn't be instead of, it should be in addition to. And like he'd say, well, they just got rid of everybody, so like what else can they do? But they like don't sign rookie camp invites. They haven't signed their own drafted prospect since Olausen. They only was that Russian defenseman Zhuravlyov they signed, but other than him, for 2 years they haven't even signed a drafted prospect.
Wow.
Like they chose not to sign Neil Zaman, and he goes on and plays with Vancouver. And like in hindsight, I wasn't that high on him. I'm not going to say like, oh, that was a massive mistake, but it's like if you're looking for guys to sign because you have such little in your prospect pool, like you're even choosing not to sign the ones
your
you
draft
have.
picks. Yeah. Well, I was gonna say it sounds like they're circumventing not having draft picks, but you're saying, well, that's kind of also not true because they trade away their own picks.
Right. Or like other college guys that they didn't sign, like Nicky Lieberman. He had a successful 5-year career as a defenseman for Notre Dame. Like I wouldn't say I'm like the highest on him, but like why move away from a guy that's been in your system for 7 years and then just roll the dice on a free agent? So to me, like I said, like I have no problem with them signing these free agents. I mean, other than the fact that they were scratching like Sampo Ranta to get these guys in the lineup.
That was weird.
And that's also another like counterproductive. Like, why does it have to be instead of like? So like we're done with Ranta now.
Exactly.
He's just gonna have to get waived in the fall. Like he's the guy that if you see any sort of NHL future for him, he's the one that needs like the call ups and the time. And so I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. Like I said, I just think the analysis has been really shallow out there, and I just wanted to kind of just bring up a few more of these points that I still think the Avs have a long way to go into rebuilding a proper development system. And so I just, like I said, I'd rather have it be in addition to and not instead of. So
that's a good point. That's a good point, because my rebuttal, like I said, was going to be, well, this is what you have to do when you don't have draft picks. But like you said, you should be doing both. You should be signing the hottest leading goal scorer in the NCAA and have draft picks in your pocket and prospects in the pool. But I mean,
or rookie camp. They don't sign anybody from rookie camp.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point? It's been 5 years since they signed O'Connor, and like they signed him because his dad played with Craig Billington.
Yeah.
So like, when was the last time they actually brought in like a rookie and it was on the table for them to impress enough to get a contract?
Yeah, I will say that what's his name? Sam Malinsky, right? Is that him? Yeah, he's looked really good.
He did a good job. Definitely got a couple of points on the power play. So yeah, I mean, there's good reason to to get excited about him. But the other thing is he's going to be 25 in the fall, so there isn't a whole lot of development left. It's just a matter of like, is he going to be good enough? Like once he gets used to the pro game and everything, it's just, is he going to be good enough? Like it's just kind of like an either or at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do.
He's good though, so I'm
Yeah.
hopeful. I'm hopeful. I'm hoping to try and get to one of these last Eagles games here next weekend to see if I
Nice.
can check him out. But I hope that's all you can really do now at this point, as you already said, Jackie. So the best we can do.
Nice. All right. What about you two, Evan, Jacob? You guys have anything you want to touch on, or is it bold prediction time?
I'm trying to think if there is anything to touch on. I think here I'll just do this instead. Can we just do this again sometime?
Is that
in June?
is that a flag of a tweet of
It's
our
a flag
tweet?
of our tweet that says the Colorado Avalanche have won the Stanley Cup.
So cool. You have to send me one of those. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is pretty neat.
Yeah, that's cool.
You didn't get put in the Hall of Fame, did you?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
I said you didn't get put in the Hall of Fame, did you? You weren't one of those.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They should have. They should have picked us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
You know what's funny is going back to what Jackie was talking about with the draft signees. Jackie's like, I feel like the analysis has been pretty shallow. What do you guys think? And we're like, well, bold prediction time.
No, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean
No,
that.
I know. I just feel like that's an example of you being 100%
feel
right.
like I saw that tweet like 15 times. Like, oh,
Yeah.
the Avs are doing it because they have no picks. It's just
Yeah.
like,
That's funny. I was just like, wow. We're like, all right, well, yeah, you're probably right.
That's good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, let's do some bold predictions. Last week we had Evan. Your bold prediction was that they would have a lossless week. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure that was not something that happened. And then Jackie, you had Byram scoring 10 goals, and I'm pretty sure that that's something that did happen.
Yeah.
So you logged yourself a bold prediction point. So congratulations. Ezra had Helm scoring a goal, which unfortunately
that was a no.
Ezra's getting the buzzer even though he's not here. Ezra, that was wrong. So let's get into them. I'll start with you, Jackie. What's your bold prediction this week?
Oh boy. Is Newhook scoring 1 goal? Is that bold enough?
I mean, he's 7 games without a point now? Something like that. Newhook goal. I
think on its own it's not bold.
How about a power play goal? Is that even crazier?
I almost want to say game-winning goal. I think I'm ready to go there. It's a
Let's
game-winning goal.
I like that. I like that a lot. All right, Evan, your turn.
I'm with Jackie. I'm liking the idea of seeing how that LA game plays out this weekend.
Okay.
Really giving them a good idea of how that's going to play out, and where that really will leave them and where they stand heading into the game. I think they're going to need some dirty goals in that LA game. So therefore, I'm going to say Andrew Cogliano gets 2 goals against the Kings.
Wow.
Ooh, 2 goals. Who gets 2 goals? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Cogliano.
Holy Moses, that is a bold prediction. I love it. I'm not putting money on that one.
That's fine. You don't need to.
Pay out real big if you did.
It would pay out really good.
That's like saying like the mafia doesn't exist. That's that's me saying I'm not betting on that one. Jacob, your turn. What's your bold prediction?
Jonas Johansson shuts out the Ducks on Sunday.
Ooh, JoJo shutout.
Okay.
It's the day after the Kings game. He's got to play it, right?
I don't think Georgiev has played either Ducks game because I remember it was Francouz and JoJo. So yeah, that could be a likely one. I guess would it be bold to say if Francouz? I think they really wanted to play him one game. Well,
if it is Francouz, I get to shift it to him. Their backup goalie shuts out the Ducks. That's my bold prediction.
Okay, I like that. No, I'm not sure that Francouz would be necessarily ready by then, but I like that hedging on the Ducks because they played their backup against them twice.
Yeah, I like that too. Well, getting back to Jackie's Newhook game-winning goal on Twitter, we've It's been official breaking news according to source. Newhook is the next Tyson Jost. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think we went there the other week. Now, to be
Yeah.
fair, he hasn't had any points since we tried to, build him up. So he is in a little bit of a rut. But
Yeah.
like I said, like he's already passed Joe's career high in points. So to me, it's just not a comparison. It's
Yeah, I
just
mean,
he's clearly
of a
more
threat.
skilled.
Yeah.
Look at our managing editor wrote a comment. My computer crashed round
Well,
face.
it's good that we got your bold prediction.
Yeah, before you crashed. And one more thing on your last week bold prediction, Jackie. You also mentioned that Byram got a bonus in his
Yes.
contract if he got to 10 goals. So I was actually fortunate enough to be at the game when he scored his 10th goal. And I was just in the crowd going, money! Money! It was awesome. It was such a
I think
good
it's
feeling.
like 212,000. It's like some really specific number, but
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
You know that one felt good, and you know he was buying dinner too for sure that night, even though I think they lost. Yeah. But thank you 4 or 3, not 2,
3.5.
3.5. Yeah, for joining me today. This has been the Mile High Hockey Lab. Oh, Evan, another great comment. Look at that. Bone bar, money bags. But thank you for listening. This is the Mile High Hockey Lab. Please go give us a like and a follow on your preferred streaming platform. Every episode is available the following day of the live stream here on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, turn on your alerts so you know every time we go live. And yeah, hopefully the Avalanche are able to win 4 of 6 games. And when we talk to you next week, we're talking about who they play in the first round and previewing the much anticipated quest for a repeat. My name is Adrian Hernandez. This is the Mile High Hockey Lab. Thank you all for listening and watching. Go Avs.